Alright, I'm going to start my speech. Before that, I'm sorry if there's any offensive statement. It's just for the debate purpose, and thank you. Alright, I'm going to start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Ladies and gentlemen, in our society right now, where in our status quo, beauty has big influence on our daily life, where these companies it's keeping advertising the beauty standards that has been made by the society, which is very manipulative and problematic as well. Why? Because they center the influence of beauty standards in a way of us affecting our assessment towards another people. Oh, okay, in this case, the influence in beauty standards is affecting them. Of course, it is wrong by principally. Why? Because we only look through people's appearance without acknowledging their personality or even their skills, for example. The influence of beauty standards itself already creating a prejudice and a discriminative people based on their look itself. For a bigger picture, let's imagine this, where this is a girl or even a boy who wants to get a job. They are capable of doing their job, but in the end of the day, they're not accepted just because how they look. Alright, before moving on to my next point, I would do two setup in here, where firstly, jobs that use in the look, such as models, are not in this debate. We are focusing on the influence of beauty in affecting people's assessments towards the other people, based on their body or their face as well. And my second setup is about, we are not talking about the plastic surgery or any medical intervention for medical stuff. We are talking where medical intervention is used as the purpose of the beauty. All right, my next point is just, we want to break this stagnancy of our status quo. Right now, where people only value someone based on their look, where in the first place, humans should be able valued as their human being, which is by their skills or even their personality as well. Alright, moving on to my definitions of these motions itself. First things first, individuals is us as a humans. Of course, we should not, should actively decenter the influence of beauty in affecting their assessment on the other people. Why? Because centralize the beauty standards means that we support to be active in terms of supporting the beauty standards, which is very problematic in the end of the day. Alright, so as for my team split, for my second speaker, she will explain about the beauty industry and the objectifications of the woman. And as for my third speaker, she will explain about the rebuttals, clashes, and also the summarize of this debate, ladies and gentlemen. Alright, moving on to my arguments. First arguments, how the harm of centering the influence of beauty in affecting other assessment on the other people, ladies and gentlemen. The pressure, the burden, and the prejudice of beauty standards itself is massively already happening in our side of the house. And this is really harmful. Why? Because first, these individuals can feel many pressures, and this will become an inferiority complex, which is very relevant in today's day. Because in our status quo right now, there is so many mental health issues where people feel the stress and the anxiety because of these standards itself. And as we can see in our side, people will suffer more, and we have the urgency to break this stagnancy, to break this cycle, ladies and gentlemen, because we don't want this cycle to be continued every day. And of course, we want to decentralize how people perceive the beauty standards itself, because beauty standards is toxic. Let's see the harms if we centralize the beauty standards to assess many people. First, we are harming people as well as us, people harming us, because we always take up with the beauty standards by doing extreme, like for example in here, doing extreme unhealthy diet, extreme exercise, for example, to make us looking pretty, to make us looking good as what the society says it's good, where in fact it is a total lie, ladies and gentlemen. And then the further harms that will cause, for example, in here where people like using the toxic chemicals, cosmetics, because how the industry always portrayed beauty as something that should be achieved instantly. And of course, this will manipulating the peoples by using like chemicals, like for example, like mercury is the only way to do the to fit into the beauty standards itself. And of course, or even in this way, this will harm many people because these some sort of mechanism will create them to have the skin cancer, for example. And even this can lead them into doing like plastic surgery just for able to stick with this society that we have today. And then, of course, the further impacts is totally relevant until today. For example, like eating disorder and body dysmorphia as well. All right. So, secondly, I will explain about how decentralized these beauty standards can bring many benefits in our side. Alright, so first things first, we can lower the discrimination, the prejudice that are already happening in our status quo right now. In here, we want to break this cycle by not pressuring people on their looks, and we want to principally value someone on their skills, on their potential, and also their personality as well. And of course, people with good looking face, they have the privilege, right? And we want this privilege is minimized so we can create equality in here. So in this way, we want to lower the discrimination between like the people that label as someone's beautiful and maybe the people that is still labeled as not good looking because of the society. All right. So secondly, we also support for not doing the body objectification in here, ladies and gentlemen. The beauty standards in here can objectify our body more because these beauty standards is used for the beauty industry, for our society, in our whole world. And this objectification is totally toxic in the end of the day because we don't want our body to be labeled as something that can be commodified. Of course, in this way, our side has been able to prove how decentralized in terms of beauty standards, in terms of affecting the assessment on other people, is on our side. All right, so in these motions, we already talked much about our benefits in here. And of course, in this way, we want to have the equal living in terms of no matter how they look, we want the better and the stable social. And in this way, already sum up with my arguments, which is first, we want the pressures and the prejudice by these beauty standards to end. And secondly, we brings benefit by not centralizing the beauty standards itself. So in this way, we have already also talked about how evil the beauty industry is, that manipulates people to make them look good in the end of the day. So in this way, we are proud to propose.
Thank you very much, First Speaker of Proposition, for the very final remarks. From 8 minutes and 7 seconds. Now to continue to open up the case of opposition, I welcome First Speaker. That is yours.
Okay, for POI preference, you can just directly ask me, but please do not spam. And I would like to start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Beauty is something complex and relative that each and every single person have in this world. Beauty can take forms in many ways, not limited only to physical appearance, but also the beauty of someone's personality and behavior towards the people that is around them. Be for real that our world give many exposure to beauty privilege, right? Under side opposition, we will actually tell you why beauty privilege is actually very important and very achievable for each and every person in our side of the house. First, as a clarification, we want beauty as a factor, but it doesn't mean we will solely focus on that factor. Let's run an analysis on first impression. Like first impression can change. For example, Declan here, he meets like a pretty girl, but then turns out after he gets to try to know her more, she has like a rotten personality. Exactly why beauty is not only the main factor in both sides of the house. I think we can still agree that many other factors will still run either way. So even when inner side of the house, we still prioritize beauty over personality. Eventually, when you think that the personality really, really sucks and rotten, I'm pretty sure you won't have anything to do with that person, right? Now, as a characterization, inner beauty has a broad definition. It means that it is non-tangible, non-physical factor. Inner beauty is something subconscious process. Example on Axel then, if he meet like physically okay girl, but nothing special about her, but then she has like amazing traits like good personality, she can cheer up the entire mood. The thing is, this too good to be true in like her personality. I'm pretty sure then Axel mind will actually process it into thinking that, oh my god, that girl is so beautiful. Even at first, he thinks that that girl is just mediocre. Now, of several responses to the side proposition then. Firstly, I would like to point out the fatal mistake that the side proposition has clearly made throughout this debate. First thing, there is being very uncharitable about characterization, about beauty definition, and it's being very shallow. They only think that solely beauty relies on physical appearance when we have already characterized that beauty is not limited to physical appearance, but there's something called like inner beauty, beautiful personality, beautiful charisma, beautiful traits, and beautiful more like that. And secondly, there is no clear goal on what actively decenter actually looks like. They do not give us a like clear picturization or portrayal of what would they do as they actively decenter. And do notice that actively decenter means that you already acknowledge the beauty first, but then you will see the other aspect too. But notice here that the first thing you notice or the first thing you see is still beauty. Now, several response and several rebuttals to the side of proposition then. He said that beauty standard is actually unfair, but in our side of the house, as opposition, we will actually tell you why beauty standard is actually achievable for many person. Now, you think if beauty standards only rely on physical appearance, then you are wrong. Because for example, if I look well, if I dress well, I wear like formal clothing, I do my hair, and my hair is like styled properly, then you can actually consider me as someone attractive because you see dressing well and putting on like you have like good hygiene, like you don't have like smells or something like that, it can actually consider you into being like a beautiful person in real life. Not to mention that even especially when you came like with a good personality, that will actually become a very bonus point to the thing that people will actually consider you as a beautiful person. And you said that in our side of the house, there will be like inferiority complex inside opposition. When everyone acknowledges the importance of beauty, it will actually motivate them instead, which I will run a further analysis on that on my argument. And secondly, you said that you're going to try to minimize the existence of beauty standard because it is so toxic and what. Not that you have been saying, but how can you make sure that you can abolish it fully? Like how can you change people's mind when it's already implemented in their brain since the very first place? Like how are you so sure that you can actually just brainwash them into thinking that beauty is not important? There is no clear likelihood to that, and even if that's possible, the proposition side of the house failed to give you like a step-by-step analysis on why is it likely, so please do not buy that. Moreover, we would like to challenge the setup that the proposition side of the house has clearly made. To respond to this. Now, so when we said that it is not only limited to physical features, so what type of beauty that we're talking about? Like beauty can take forms in, for example, beautiful personality when that person is being very passionate, very caring towards other, and can enlighten the whole room situation. We can consider that as a person with beautiful personality. Now let's see about beautiful charisma. Like for example, if someone dressed well, smells nice, we can consider them, and sees like very brave and encourages to speak in public, then we can actually consider that person as very beautiful and charismatic. Do notice that dressing well doesn't equal to expensive clothing. So as a preemptive, proposition side of the house cannot really say, what if people cannot afford like good dress or like something expensive as that? Notice that dressing well like in proper clothing doesn't actually mean that you have to buy expensive clothing, especially when we're living in a digitalization era where everything is easily possible. Like there's example on a cheap good clothes on Shopee and more to that. So I think it's very achievable for everyone to have a good proper clothing, not the expensive one, but just the proper clothing one. And now let's say about, for example, beautifully done hair. For example, if I come to this debate with my hair messy, would you consider me as someone beautiful? No, I don't think so. Even when my face maybe looks like above average or something like that. But if I don't wear proper clothing, if I don't do my hair really well, like my hair is like a mess or something like that, I don't think you will consider that person beautiful. So in fact, beauty doesn't only rely on people's appearance, like people's features like eyes, nose, body, or something like that. But it actually, but we're talking about here is the appearance of the outside external aspect as well. Now, to the substantive to this. First, let's see the impact to the individual who already understand or who already manifests and clearly understands what does it mean when they actually want to center the influence of beauty in affecting their assessment with other people. Now, then when a certain person understand that in order they want to achieve something, for example, like beauty privilege, you cannot say that beauty privilege is very advantageous. For example, it is very important when you run like a job interview, or maybe when you come to a certain competition, or maybe you came to a certain event or party. Why would you wear something that inappropriate? For example, you have like a formal gala or something like that. When a certain person has understand the beauty, the meaning of having an actual beauty, it's very likely for that person to actually lose their best. It's not always solemnly about like we're trying to change someone's appearance, like doing plastic surgery or something like that. That is not what our side of us. That is not what side opposition is trying to do. But what we want here is they actually understand that each and every single person in this world is unique and they have something beautiful inside of them. For example, maybe their face is just like okay, not that pretty or not that ugly, but they dress really well, they done their hair, they wear proper clothing, they smell nice. Eventually, when this person attends like a formal gala or a formal event that they already want to participate in, then people that come to this event will actually eventually consider that person as someone who is very, very beautiful. Now let's do a second layer on why physical appearance is also very, very important. Let's run an analysis on job interview. For example, when you're applying for a job interview, do notice the side proposition also said that we cannot take modeling job to this debate, which I think is very, very unfair because I agree that modeling needs beauty at first, but do notice that it's actually every type of job in this world need beauty. Like let's run an analysis on job interview. For example, there's person A and person B, and they both came to the same job interview. But then person A wore something nice, they dressed nice, and she do her hair well. Meanwhile, person B just wear like what? A t-shirt and long pants. Which one do you think that the HRD will actually prefer to interview? Maybe even they both get the same chance of interview. I think that will actually impact the whole situation of the first impression of the HRD towards this person. Like when you're being not physically, when your physical appearance doesn't look like you're ready for something, it will actually degrade your whole level. You cannot be taken professionally, especially when you're like running for a job interview. And this is the burden that side proposition has to answer in our side of the house, and very proud to oppose.
Thank you very much, First Speaker of the Opposition, for that clarifying remarks. We spent 8 minutes and 18 seconds. Now to continue the case of proposition, I welcome the second speaker. What is yours?
Alright, before I start my speech, I would like to have some trigger warnings that this topic can be pretty sensitive. So just a trigger warning ahead, so that there may be some very detailed and sensitive topics I would like to bring up, which is not affecting my real standing regarding this issue in the first place within the real world. So starting my debate in 3, 2, 1. Panels. The issue within our society as of right now, brought up by my first speaker as we stated, is the urgency of how physical beauty, of how beauty, specifically physical beauty, are affecting how people's assessment of other individuals. Yes, we partly agree with their assessment that beauty does not consist of only physical beauty, that there are also other types of beauty, such as their personality, their inner beauty, and etc. But all of this, ladies and gentlemen, in our status quo as of right now, are being covered by the fact of physical beauty themselves. They did not explain how is it possible for people to be able to just look past the physical beauty at first and then just look at them through their other beauty standards, such as their inner beauties, their personality, etc. And they also stated the fact that there's also the first impression, where they believe that people, at first they will get the first impression that they are beautiful, but then when they got to know each other, if that person's personality is toxic and rotten, they would start to distance themselves. But ladies and gentlemen, we believe that this is actually not very feasible in the first place. Because why? Because of this stigmatization, because of this belief that beauty is very important in the first place, ladies and gentlemen, because these people are already being influenced by beauty, that they thought that every person is beautiful. They felt inferior because because it affected their assessment to that person. They did not have the chance to assess their personality at first because they are already being affected by their physical beauty. They felt that they are inferior, thus they do not have the courage to actually actively go to that person to befriend them and to actually get to recognize them better in the first place, ladies and gentlemen. That's why we do not believe on their side have the better status quo in the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen. They were also talking about the fact that people, the way they dress, the way they look, is actually the very definite of how you can describe describe beauty in the first place. But ladies and gentlemen, it is on our status quo that why there are actually more beautiful people out there that are having more higher standings, such as for etc. like people in jobs in workforces where most of them their superiors have more physical attractiveness than others who are below them. This is actually the true proof of how physical beauty is actually affecting how people assess other individuals, ladies and gentlemen. Now we will move on with my layers of arguments, which consists of how we, in the status quo of our proposition, will be able to achieve. One, we can create an environment that is full of inclusivity, ladies and gentlemen. Why inclusivity matters in the first place, ladies and gentlemen? Because at the first place, it is unfair for us to judge someone based on their looks, ladies and gentlemen, because we already explained before on our rebuttals how most often or not, people cannot look past physical beauty, and that physical beauty covers every other aspects of beauty, like what their proposition tried to characterize. Thus, we see that it is actually invalid for them to say that we can just judge people directly from how they dress is, because it is actually being neutralized by how they looked by the stigmatization of the society already in its whole. Now, it is unfair because it is, once again, we are overlooking their skills. We are overlooking how they are able to contribute to society better, all due to their physical beauty as a whole that defines their very being in society, ladies and gentlemen. We need to stop all this stigmatization, and thus we need to acknowledge their skills. Why we believe that we should actively decenter the influence of beauty in the first place, because by acknowledging their skills already, we can create a more quality generation where people are being more acknowledged, people are being more regarded because they have something to prove within themselves, which is their skills, and thus creating a quality generation which create more of innovations as a whole within our side of the house, ladies and gentlemen. Second of all, we can stop objectification of stigmatization of beauty. This is an extension of my first speaker, as we have stated before, where people in the status quo are always objectifying and like selling their beauty as an object to other people. Well, how many parties are influenced by this? One, individuals themselves, the people, where individuals use their beauty as a tool to gain their interests. For example, women using their facial and body beauty to their advantage, and then to gain like maybe their ideal partner, to gain their job they wanted, to gain more support, and all of this is used by them them objectifying their beauty in the first place, which we see as wrong, ladies and gentlemen. Beauty is something, once again, that is different to all, and we see that them being objectifying beauty, and putting them in a frame is wrong in the first place. And also, this also applies to men, ladies and gentlemen, where men, they felt that they have to have like abdominal muscles, they felt that they have to have paler skin than most, because they wanted to be the center of attention, they wanted to be recognized by their fellow peers and not by their fellow opposite genders, because once again, they want to gain their interests, such as they want to gain the perfect wife, for example, they want to gain the job, promotion, for example, and this is actually pretty bad because, once again, objectifying beauty is immoral, ladies and gentlemen. Now, second of all, what other parties that objectify beauty itself? Well, it is, of course, the beauty industry, ladies and gentlemen. Beauty industry often use the insecurities of people, of men and women who felt that they do not fit the criteria of the physical beauty in the first place. Thus, they felt that they do not have the proper standing, that they do not have the equality with other people who are more beautiful, let's say, than them. That's why these beauty industry, they are applying beauty capitalism where they gain profit from it. They offered cure, they aka offered a cure to these people with insecurities, saying that, like for example, guys, because you guys have small noses, you guys have not plump lips, and that is not according to the beauty standards, then we from the beauty industry are offering you guys a cure, a way out of this social stigma. How? By giving you, for example, beauty serums, injecting beauty serums into you, giving you plastic surgeries to change your appearance, and etc. This is all immoral, ladies and gentlemen, because they are, once again, using people's insecurities through their profit. They are neglecting the true core. They are neglecting the morality of this by using this to their advantage, to their profit, ladies and gentlemen, which is bad at its core. There could, and that is why we are very proud to propose, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
Thank you very much to the speaker of opposition for the very final remarks. Now we will continue the case of opposition. I will call the second speaker. That is yours.
Right, I'll start in 3, 2, 1. Not everyone in the status quo is so shallow that they will look at a person and then assess that, oh, I don't want to talk to them in the matter of a short period of split seconds, right? This is not what the average person does. So what is their main case in this debate? Their main case that, oh, that under our side, people just focus on beauty standards. They'll just judge a person by their looks, by their physical attributes. This is their main argument, right? Here's several responses to this, right? Firstly, note that when it comes to a person's identity, it is characterized by a lot of different factors other than physical beauty, right? For example, factors like personality of the person, their behavior, attitudes, whether this person is introverted or extroverted, whether they're kind, so on and so forth. The list just goes on and on. Panel. When it comes to assessing a person, these are the factors that people would consider, and more often than not, the average individual would weigh these non-physical factors more than the physical ones, right? For example, let's say that you see a stranger and your first impression is that, oh, this stranger has a mean face, right? But then eventually when you talk to them, you realize that, oh, this person is a good person, right? They are kind. Then you're going to remember this person as someone that is nice to you, and not someone that is mean, just because you initially think that, oh, they have a mean face, right? Look, at the end of the day, even in the status quo, the existence of these beauty standards, we put way more importance in assessing the non-tangible attributes of an individual rather than their physical attributes, right? So this proves to you that even if we follow proposition's framing, that even if we go into the worst case where like beauty is only physical beauty, this physical beauty is not considered as a major or determining factor in the assessment of a person or an individual, right? This means that even when there is beauty standards under our side of the house, people already know that first impressions are just that. They are just first impression, right? I'm not just gonna walk in the room, see like, for example, 5 people and then say, hey, I wanna talk to them, I don't wanna talk to them based on their looks. This is something that doesn't exist in the status quo. Even in the status quo, people already know basic decency. Right? They know not to judge a person by, for example, their skin color or by other physical attributes. They know that this is unjust, right? This already exists in the current status quo, right? Look, people in the status quo are not just this shallow. It is like an extreme case that is brought by them. Lastly then, note that even in the worst case scenario, we think that physical physical attributes have some resemblance of importance, because physical attributes also reflect to a certainty your character. What am I talking about here? I'm talking about physical attributes such as, for example, your grooming, such as the attire you wear, right? So when, for example, if you're a job interviewer, you see someone that is wearing like a suit, that have groomed their hair, you probably know that this person wants this job. This person is a dedicated person that puts in the effort, because when they go up to this interview, they dress nicely, they groom, right? They prepared for this interview. Compared as to when you see a person just go there and, for example, just like a plain t-shirt with sandals, right? You know that this person probably doesn't take the job seriously. They don't take the situation seriously, right? This is what I mean by certain physical attributes would reflect your character, and it is why it is also just as important that is also why it is important to actually consider these physical attributes when you look at this, right? Now, furthermore, note that beauty isn't only characterized by your facial features or your look, right? There are other types of beauty, such as inner beauty. And yes, this concept is more abstract, but it actually exists, right? Panel, inner beauty will be made out of non-tangible factors, like, for example, the vibe that an individual would give off, their personality, and so on. And note that their side has already conceded to this, right? On their side, if since they've already acknowledged that, oh, personality is part of your beauty, the comparative on their side is that someone that has a good personality will be ignored, because they are actively decentering on this thing. The harm on their side is just physically way more, because they have already conceded to this, right? This type of inner beauty is something that we use to give like a summation of a person's identity, right? For example, when I meet someone and they're kind, they behave in like a civilized way, they're charismatic, they're unique in their own way, etc., then my brain would process all of these different kind of factors and come up with the concept of this inner beauty, right? The concept of this inner beauty is something that has a broad definition, but it is actually made out of non-tangible and non-physical factors. So like, for example, when you meet someone and you say that, oh, that person is beautiful on the inside, you're not exactly sure which certain personality trait actually causes this, but you know that that person has inner beauty because you know it is there, right? It is made out of non-tangible factors, right? This is very important because more often than not, like this certain instinct that you get out of physical beauty is a reflection of like the personality that that person actually has. This is just how your brain processes it, right? Your brain just ends up with a concept that is called inner beauty. Now then, onto my extension on how on their side they actually offer a problem solution mismatch. Look, panel, let's analyze as to why side proposition solution is actually a mismatch in the first place, right? Because on their side of the house, people would actively decenter beauty as stated in the motion. And panel, note the keyword actively here, right? Since side proposition didn't characterize what this process looks like, let me just do this for you. Panel, when you're actively decentering beauty, you're actively thinking in your head, I shouldn't notice the look of this person, I shouldn't notice the look of this person, right? And their physical attributes. This is problematic because when you actively think, I shouldn't look at them, I shouldn't like consider their physical attribute, your brain will immediately jump to physical attributes, right? So for example, in their side of the house, if someone just goes around, they meet a person, and their first instinct that goes to their head is like, I shouldn't notice their physical attribute, their brain will immediately notice his physical attributes because they're just actively thinking about this. So for example, on their side, if they meet someone and they notice that, hey, this person, for example, has big eyes or like small noses, and then their brain will automatically jump to, hey, I shouldn't consider factors, but since they're actively thinking of this, they're more likely to actually subconsciously put importance on this, right? Under our side of the house, we rather people just follow this current status quo where they meet a person and they talk to them and they evaluate them on the things that is considered important to them, right? Even in the status quo, we don't actively go out and meet a single person and we say, hey, because let's say you have a large nose, I will not talk to you. This is something that already doesn't exist. We don't actually understand the huge intangible harms under our side of the house, right? Look, at the end of the day, whether you see beauty as something that is physical or something that is more abstract that involves inner beauty, it is something that is reflective of a person's identity. That means that if it represents a person's identity, we should actually consider this in their assessment, right? Panel, at the end of the day, no matter if these physical properties are, for example, dressing properly or not, we should actually consider we should actually consider this, right? Look, the biggest problem on their side is they have never actually characterized you as to why this active analyzation of a person is actually bad. Analyzation of a person will actually be effective, right? And because of all of these reasons, then vote for side opposition.
Thank you very much for the
starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. Firstly, I want to clarify and give some rebuttals to the opposition side. Firstly, when they were saying that when everyone acknowledged by these, people will be motivated. But how can you guarantee people will be motivated because everyone, because this acknowledged? Because in our status quo with nowadays generations, where they easily feeling pressures by people assessment or people talks, and this will lead to insecurity, which we'll be talking in my classes. And then second, clarifying, the thing is, if when the second speaker told you about the mean first impressions, the thing is, if their person looks mean in the first place, in the status quo, the majority would like just avoid them in the very first place, right? And even if they did interact with them, they will still be influenced by the beauty standard itself. They will feel like forced to interact with them because of the job obligatory, when that mean looking man is your and only the minority will be brave enough to interact with them. And then when they're talking about inner beauty and personality is being pushed aside for the favor of physically beauty. This is our real status quo that have been talked from my second speaker. And then moving on to my clashes. First clashes talking about the impact. Panels, the influence of beauty and affecting their assessment on other people will create more harm than good in their side. Why? Because firstly, pressure and prejudice have been said on my first speaker. In our side, it's being people feel insecure and anxiety. Well, it's creating a mindset. Oh, where I'm not pretty enough. I have to. I feel left behind. Yeah, something like that. And also, without actively decenter the influence of beauty in affecting their assessment on other people, we are harming people where, for example, such as extreme diet and extreme workout, as my first speaker have taught you. And then secondly, I think in our side will be like lessen the mindset for the people whose feelings and insecurities, where we ourselves have a mindset where we cannot judge people by their appearance itself, because it's affect ourselves who's affecting their assessment on other people, where they will feel that way will affect themselves, where they will feel that they will not be judged by other people. And I think at least we lessen this kind of mindset for people's and also thirdly, by using people insecurities is morally wrong and ethically wrong, panels. Why? Because in our side of the house, we should see that this beauty capitalism is creating like more harm than good, I think, and that this beauty capitalism is inherently evil for purposely like using women and men's insecurities to promote their products, as my second speaker have told you, how this is a fact to the using people insecurities to become for selling those products. And our setup is that we do not include those who are selling to cure their own illness, such as the surgeries, plastic surgeries, and etc. And also, they are actively promoting that beauty is everything. They objectify beauty as the most important thing to be a person, which resulted to them projectify as like saviors that help people that do not fulfill certain beauties. Certain beauties criteria by opposing care, such as plastic surgery, beauty serums, and as my second speaker have told you, that to change their facial features. For example, like the teenager being bullied because of their their nose is something bad, and another perspective from other people. So I think in our side we will be reducing the harmful of people when beauty in affecting their assessment on other people. And And as I said before, in our side, we will be lessen those insecurities mindset for the society. So proud to propose.
Thank you very much, third speaker of proposition for that remarks. Now to continue and to sum up the case of opposition, I welcome third speaker, time is yours.
Okay. I will start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Panel, we live in a world where assessments on someone are done by every single physical sense that we have. For example, eye for seeing, ears for hearing. This includes the phenomenon of first impression on people that you just meet. This phenomenon happens because of the human's natural ability to identify perceived information and to translate it into attributes that we have within our mind. Do note that this perception surrounding beauty have been clarified by this L also. So the term beauty here is very much broad. We can actually touch on physical beauty. We can actually touch on inner beauty that has been clearly presented by the leader of the opposition, right? First impressions are made by taking assessments based on beauty of your physical appearance and can also be based on your inner beauty, right? Say, for example, in this case, your personality. Now, why is this important to point out, right? As it has been stated by my first and second leader opposition team, right? Because this is very much important because when in the real world, you can actually see that first impressions actually do matter, right? Because for instance, right? For example, you are seeing somebody who actually looks friendly, then you would tend to approach them, right? Now, during this debate, the line have been so blurred between first impression and beauty standards, right? And I'm gonna be rebutting and touching on that later on, right? But clearly, first impressions are not that ominous, right? First impressions are not that ominous that when you see somebody, let's say for example, with a certain body type, that you would actually judge their whole life based on it, right? So this is actually clearly false, and it's actually too ominous for the government to actually portray, right? Now, moving on to my rebuttal and my clashes, right? So during this debate, we also talk a lot about beauty standard, right? Now, the government claims it to be that physical appearance in assessment plays a huge role in creating this inferiority complex, right? These beauty standards, right? But we would argue that this perception is not caused by the assessment itself. So it's not caused inherently by that physical assessment. But we would argue that it is the fault of an additional attribute that follows. For instance, okay, let's put it into an example, right? A certain body type is a certain adjective, for example. Now the assessment itself does not actually cause for us to actually feel and actually think of these attributes, right? This underlying, inherent adjective that you would put after a certain body type, for example, is the problem here. So the problem here, it's not the fact that we are actually centering our assessments on these physical attributes, but the underlying connotations under it are the root of the problem. For example, a certain body type is a certain adjective, a certain height is a certain adjective, a certain skin complexion is a certain adjective. So that is the problem here when it comes to beauty standard. It's not that assessment, it's not that information that you see, but it's the underlying connotation that becomes the problem, and we are actually here to alleviate that, right? We are encouraging open discussions about beauty and how it looks like, right? For instance, when it comes to physical beauty, we are not portraying beauty and actually dictate people about their pre-existing condition. For example, your skin color or your body type. We are encouraging people to actually discover and to become a beautiful person based on their perception themselves, right? Back in their own way. Now, why is this the case for us, right? Why this actually is matter? Because we actually do argue that within the practicality that first impressions and actually physical assessments actually plays a huge role. For instance, as it has been stated by my first and second speaker, when you come to a job interview, you would actually expect somebody who looks nice to actually want the job themselves, right? So these judgments, these assessments can also be beneficial within our side of the house, right? For another case is the case of romance, for example, and the case of identity, right? Beauty can can also be an integral part of someone's identity. For example, dressing a certain way, or adhering to a certain dress code, for example, in events, for example. You would actually find this like, for example, traditional clothing during an event, or maybe like you would say a traditional makeup that you would actually have to adhere to, right? So clearly, physical attributes and beauty actually do take and plays an important role within someone's identity, right? Another thing, if you want to touch on inner beauty, right? For example, it can also play an integral role within a culture. For example, a low, grounded, down-to-earth personality in Japanese culture, right? Now, the Japanese culture expects somebody to actually adhere to this kind of beauty, right? For someone to actually have a low, grounded, low-profile, down-to-earth personality, because this is part of their identity, right? What we are trying to do here is to actually empower people and to actually get people to adhere to their identity and to actually take pride within their identity, right? What we are trying to do here is not to actually put people into boxes and dictate people, okay, this certain trait is beautiful, this certain trait is beautiful, this certain trait is beautiful. What we are actually trying to portray here is the fact that we are actually letting and giving people freedom to actually adhere to whatever trait they want, they actually perceive it to be beautiful, right? Now, actually moving on to the counterfactual, picturizing how our world would actually look like, yes.
Right? How can you guarantee that people will start to use their freedom to use their beauty in what they wanted if there are beauty capitalism in the first place in the status quo? Thank you.
Okay, I'll touch on that later, right? Okay, moving on to the counterfactual and how our world will actually look like, right? Within our world, we are advocating for people to find and to actually become a better version of themselves. We have to make it clear that beauty isn't something. We are making it clear that beauty isn't something linear and is something to be proud of, right? Now, touching on that, beauty capitalism, right? Now, beauty capitalism actually exists because of that underlying connotation, as I have said in the first place, right? So, physical judgments, and when it comes to like physical assessments that we are actually centering here, is not the problem if we don't have that underlying connotation, right? So it is clearly irrelevant to actually talk about how are we going to alleviate these underlying connotations, because what we are debating here is whether we should actually center our physical assessments within one person, right? So moving on, in our world where beauty isn't just for each and every single individual to be beautiful in their own way. We are encouraging people to adhere to a proper and a non-pre-existing standard, for example, as I have stated, to adhere to a certain physical and to a certain dress code, for example, within an event. And this would actually look like wearing a certain type of clothing to an event, dressing a certain way when it comes to a job interview, etc., right? We are doing this as we are actually exposing people, we're actually empowering people by giving them a freedom of choice to actually how they can actually adhere to their own version of beauty, right? Now, how the world will actually look like within our side, within the government side of the house? None, because they haven't actually given any clarification. They did not actually give any characterization on how their world would actually look like. They did not even clarify how to actually decenter their perception when it comes to like assessing people, let alone picturize a world how it would actually look like, right? So they did not actually specify on, okay, what step to actually take in order to like decentralize physical attributes to it. But yeah, they did not actually provide any clear picturization of how their world will actually look like. In conclusion, panel, what we are actually advocating here is the fact that yes, physical attributes and physical beauties get to actually play a huge important role, especially in identity, especially in first impressions, and it can also reflect of a certain value that does not inherently be and have a negative connotation. And for that, we are so proud to oppose this motion. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that remarks. Third speaker of opposition. Now to sum up the debate for the opposition side of the House, I welcome the Vice Speaker. Thanks, yours.
It's okay, I'll use this. Okay, my speech will start in 3, 2, 1. We cannot deny that beauty standard can be very beneficial. Receiving beauty privilege can boost your social status, enhance your job promotion, or basically just make your life easier. Inside proposition, under their rule, insecure people will keep on hating and being jealous of the privileged one. Meanwhile, on our side of the house as opposition, people will actually focus more on themselves. After they notice about what is the importance of beauty standards, they will eventually learn that they want to do that as well. And we have been explaining on why beauty standard is achievable for everyone because we noticed that physical features like nose, eyes cannot be changed. However, if you dress nicely, you smell nice, you do your hair well, you can actually consider by someone who has a beauty privilege, and we have been stating that since the very first beginning. And that is why borough benefits will be achieved on our side opposition. Now, what proposition has brought into this debate? Two things. First, they mentioned about immorality of objectifying object. Well, our response to that, do notice that it's actually two different things between letting beauty affecting their relationship with people, or letting perfect people to exploit someone's beauty, which can happen either side of the house. So I think that is unjustified for them to actually brought objectifying beauty, because that is actually something very controversial to this, and we're talking about the influence of beauty, not objectifying. It's two different things. And moreover, they mentioned something about inferiority complex, pressure, and prejudice. Well, we cannot choose in what body or what face you're born with. Just because someone is prettier than you, that should not be your reason to actually hate and be insecure. Instead, you should upgrade yourself. For example, we have mentioned that beauty is very complex and relative. You can enhance your personality quality, or maybe you can make yourself smarter or something like that. Beauty standard is something very achievable, and we have been stating that since the very first place. So it should not be a reason for you to be so bitter. And you said that in your side of the house, people will not judge other people solely on beauty. Well, we have been saying again, beautiful is relative. Like, beautiful appearance doesn't equal to beautiful body feature that cannot be changed. Beautiful appearance relate to more than that. For example, attributes, clothing, hair, or maybe something like that. And you said that in our side of the house, promoting beauty will be everything. Well, it's clear that we just want to actively center the influence of beauty in affecting their assessment on other people. And even if they do that, we have already stated why it's very beneficial for them to do that. Now, the strategic mistakes that the proposition side of the house has bring to this debate. They think that people are that shallow. When they see someone better than them, they will think like, oh my god, I will become very insecure or something like that. Moreover, from the very first to the third speaker, they're being very redundant, where they bring nothing, like no counterfactual at all and no engagement, while they only solemnly focus on their base case only, which has been tackled down by side opposition. And also, they kind of backslash their own case after agreeing that beauty can also take part in personality, and also one-liner arguments with no likelihood. So let's see on how do we actually should weigh this debate. Now let's do a metric on best case and worst case comparison. In government case side of the house, probably if we're being charitable, if it's achievable, then people will think that beauty isn't the first thing they see. However, do notice that appearance is still the first thing people will see. Why? Because we have eyes, right? Even when we notice that their personality sucks eventually even more, but we still think that person is beautiful in the first place. So therefore, their best case doesn't happen here. And their worst case here is very, very complex, where they keep a stagnant and inferior people. They create stagnancy where people doesn't want to improve themselves. Now look, inside opposition here, even in our worst case scenario panels, why is our side still better? Because that proposition only solution is counterintuitive to their problem. Panel, when you actively decenter beauty, you're actively noticing their physical attributes in the first place. Your mindset on side proposition will always be thinking, I should ignore their physical attribute. And the problem is that the more you try and not to think of something, the more you will think of it. So that is just funny. Meanwhile, inside opposition here, our best case is we give more influence to people for improving themselves, and that is why you should score for side opposition. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the clarifying remarks. It applies to your opposition. Now to close out the debate and to sum up the government's case, I welcome the reply from opposition.
Alright, so I'm going to start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Ladies and gentlemen, let's have an overview from this debate. From this debate, we have two important points. First is about the beauty itself. Secondly, is about the actively decentralized is better than the side of their house. Okay, first things first, they keep stating about the inner beauty exists and the other thing. However, The thing is that if that person, like as they already mentioned in their third speaker, if the person like looks mean in the first place in the status quo, the majority will just avoid them in the first place. And of course, if they do interact with them, they will still be influenced by the beauty standard itself because they felt forced to interact with them, maybe because of job obligatory and whatsoever. When that means looking, it's still influence in their side of the house. So the inner beauty of their points is not there because it cannot stand at all. All right, so moving on. The status quo have already covered in the inner beauty itself, which is the psycho beauty is more as the majority as the scale of the beauty itself, because the status quo right now are more focused on physical beauty, and it is already relevant and real in our side of the house as well. If inner beauty really exists and of more focus, why the beauty industry exists massively in terms of like cosmetics, beauty products, and also like beauty procedures such as Botox, plastic surgery, and many more. And of course, if the inner beauty it's really exists and really happening in the status quo, of course there will be no market in this beauty industry already happening in our side of the house. So in this case, they have failed to realize how the industry plays such a big role on using people's insecurity for getting the profits, ladies and gentlemen, because they're always stating that they are not shallow in terms of mentally, but we should realize how mental health, it's not something that can be standardized. It's something more than that. It's something really complex, and it is personalized by each person's have their own way on interpreting their emotions, ladies and gentlemen. All right, secondly, how actively decentralized the beauty is better than their side of the house. Okay, why? Because actively decentralized means we can start a new progress of minimizing the influence of beauty is everything. Where in the end of the day, as we can see in here, no one is perfect, ladies and gentlemen. And the society, as we already explained earlier, that the society is expecting us to be perfect. It's putting us on a pressures, on a prejudice, and pushing ours into a burden, ladies and gentlemen. And of course, if they are centralized the beauty standards itself, this will bigger the chance of the manipulations and also the beauty industry to grow more massively. And of course, we don't want that to happen in our society, right? Because we value that every people can be unique, and of course, they can shine in their own way, not standardized by this beauty that already stated in the status quo itself. And of course, in this case, our team has provided the arguments and also many clashes that stated that we should win on this debate. So furthermore, we already explained about how the beauty itself and the beauty industry affected our world insanely with many like in the industry such as like surgeries and many more, which we doing for like vanity and for the satisfaction from each people or each individuals, which is already principally wrong in the first place. That's all from me. We are pro to propose. Okay.